Hello, everybody. Welcome to Progressive Parenting Network Talk. Today we're going to be talking about anthropology. The title we came up with was Anthropologize, which anthropologize and show us your nursing in public policy slash breastfeeding policy and know your rights. So we're going to be talking about a lot of things today, and I'm really excited about today's topic because I'm a breastfeeding mom. And I'm a breastfeeding mom who has a hard time nursing in public. Uh, I stand up for the rights of women to nurse in public and do it without a cover if they want to. I'm very, what's the word I'm looking for? I was talking to Joe Valley and his wife Andrea the other night because she was asked to leave a public place for nursing. And I was saying that I was brought up with a lot of sexual shame. So I still have a hard time like nursing in public. So this is a real near and dear topic for me because from the very beginning, 11 years ago when I first started nursing, I was very reluctant to nurse in public because I just didn't feel like our culture kind of supported that. So that's where our topic is today. I have two guests joining us. Right now we'll be joined by Michelle Hickman. She's the Director of Activism at Best for Babes and a mother and a dear friend. And later on in the show we'll be joined by Krisdee Donmoyer. She lives here in Austin and is a breastfeeding activist as well. In fact, she's joining us live right now. Maybe I can do a better introduction. I'll just let her do it. Hi, Krisdee. How are you? Oh, I can
Okay,
see.
how are you?
Okay, good. I can hear you. I'm doing great. Could you just really quickly introduce yourself to everybody, and then I'll have Michelle do the same, and then we'll move on. Okay, we'll come back. 'Cause it looks like it froze. That's all right. Let me get back to our topic at hand. So, anthropology. Michelle, can you walk us through what happened at the store in the Beverly Hills location in California? Everybody just went mute. Hold on. What's going on? Why are we mute? 1 second, y'all. This loving technology. It's so much fun. We all had sound a little bit ago.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
The mother was nursing her baby at the Beverly Hills store in Anthropology, the Beverly Hills location, and she was on a shopping trip, and she actually paid for $700 worth of apparel or whatever, and an employee came up and asked Mrs. Hessen to, basically escorted her to the bathroom where she was supposed to finish feeding her child, and basically, she had to stop nursing in order to go to the escort, and while they were escorting, the baby was crying, and the lady, she reported what the lady said to her, "Oh, it's okay, baby, you can finish eating in just a minute." And so, of course, she went in. When they got into the bathroom, there was no chair, there was no nothing, and there was nothing but a toilet. So it was a matter of sit on the toilet and feed your baby, or, kind of what do you do? And so she reached out on social media to various people. She did call the Best for Babes Nursing and Public Hotline as well. And that kind of went from there as far as how the incident got started.
Okay, so I'm going to check back in with Krisdee really quick before I comment on that and see if we can hear her now.
Can you? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I
Yes.
can.
Okay. I might be moving in a second because I'm outside, so you can't hear my kids. And it just started to rain.
Excellent.
So more technical difficulties, but hopefully
That's okay.
it'll keep working.
Can you tell us what your role is as far as activism goes in the breastfeeding world?
I had an incident too, and so I started a blog, and I've become very active in my local coalition and the state coalition. For the state, I'm the legislative chair. And I'm hoping my husband's running for an umbrella because I seriously can't get all the cords inside. My battery will die if I take off. But that's what I'm doing. Michelle, too, is working on the legislation for Texas coming up.
Excellent. Okay, so here's a mom who goes into a store, she spends quite a bit of money. I've never spent that much money, at least in anthropology before. And she is asked to leave the sales floor for breastfeeding and is given the option of a bathroom. So she contacts Best for Babes. That starts people talking. Anthropology is contacted. What was Anthropology's response?
The official response that was given to the mom, well, actually not to the mom, I correct myself. The response was released from Anthropology PR department, and I will pull it on my screen and read it to you here word for word. And basically, it wasn't even really an apology, even though they said it was, and I'll get into that later, but their official statement was, "We are disappointed to hear of the unfortunate experience that occurred in our Beverly Hills store. As a company compromised of hundreds of mothers, which seeks to put the customer first, we celebrate women in all of their life stages. Given our staff's dedication to providing exceptional customer service, we welcome this opportunity to enhance our customer experience by providing further training and education for our staff. Our aim is that all women, all mothers, be comfortable in our stores and delight in the relationship with Anthropology."
So not really an apology.
Not really. It's more like, thanks for letting us know what happened. We're disappointed.
Okay, that's not the same thing. That would be kind of like my husband and I getting in a fight over me forgetting to do something, and then I just say, "I'm really disappointed that happened." And that would be But they did, now, in there somewhere it said that they would do something about educating their staff. Did I miss that or get that wrong?
They did make a mention of, it said, "We welcome this as an opportunity to enhance our customer experience by providing further training and education for our staff." However, they said it's an opportunity to do so, and they did not say that they were going to actually do so.
They don't say what they train them to do, exactly. They don't say that they would do anything differently.
Okay.
Paula, in her blog, reported that she'd been told that the staff is trained, and they're specifically trained to escort them off into a restroom or wherever. I think she got that from a former employee. I read her blog before we started. I'm not certain it says that exactly. Do you know, Michelle?
I don't.
Okay. Well, here's the thing then, because I saw, on the Anthropology Facebook page, a lot of people were saying, well, they did apologize, and they did say this, and they did say they were going to be training. So yeah, that didn't occur to me. Like, well, what kind of training? They're not really saying. They're not coming out and saying what that is. Let me ask you guys why. I mean, this happened to you, Michelle, right, at Target?
Yes.
Not too long ago. Still very fresh in your brain, I'm sure. I think about it every time I nurse in Target now. I think about you. This happens a lot, and it's 2014, and for a really long time now we've known about all of the benefits of breastfeeding. So my question to you ladies is why does this keep happening? What drives this? What makes this so pervasive? What makes it so that the vast majority of people that are anti-breastfeeding in public are other women? Who wants to answer that one first?
Okay.
Where does it come from?
I don't, when I was nursing the baby in Target, it was very similar to this. The employees approached me, and they were trained that there is a fitting room and that is an acceptable place for a mother to go nurse her baby. So basically, they took that as, the little one-sentence statement in their 50-page long employee handbook, that meant they had to tell moms to go utilize that fitting room. And that's what they reported to me whenever I was questioning why so many of them were asking me to move. And very similar to Anthropology, Target didn't actually apologize to me personally. I never heard from them personally. Instead, they released a statement to the media saying, oh, thanks for letting us know, but you know, this is our policy here at Target, and we welcome breastfeeding. You know, basically a lot of corporate lip service with no true proof that there was a real change. And I think, you know, there's so many stories of moms like myself, like Krisdee, who's joining us here today, who also had an incident, you know, and you see them all the time in the news. And it's kind of a multi-leveled, you know, issue as far as, you know, our laws don't truly support us, which we'll get into that, I'm sure, a little later with Krisdee. But moms generally want an apology, and they want to see that something is going to change so that the moms who follow them are not going to have this happen to them. And so most of the time, the stores typically answer and have some type of a really great, oh, we're so sorry, we promise we're going to train and do this or that or the other. However, there's never no proof of the training that's taking place. So myself, when I had my incident in Target, I did my research, and I found out that 2 years previous, Target also had an incident, also made a somewhat of an apology and a claim to train. Well, if they effectively are training their employees, why are these problems still continuing to happen within the same corporate settings and within the same corporations? So, you know, I think it's gotten to the point where moms have recognized that all of these companies are continually just saying, oh, we're so sorry, we promised we're going to train. But moms are finally thinking, okay, we've heard this song and dance from Target or the YMCA or Anthropology or whoever it is, and that's just not good enough anymore. A promise to train without any proof of it is not any good. We want to see the proof. We want to know that somebody is doing effective training, because the training that you guys currently are doing obviously isn't effectively working. So I think that's the main thing as to where this is kind of heading, and why you see moms recognizing more and more, hey, we need to have training, and we need to make sure we're pressing for training. And Best for Babes did actually reach out to Anthropology, and we still haven't gotten any response from them, as did several other, breastfeeding organizations. But what we'd like to see, ideally, is for these people to at least, it's a personal thing, like at least have a personal one-on-one apology to the mom, not to the media, but to the mom, and try to do something to effectively change things to prohibit this from happening in the future.
All right, so I'll get back to my question, and then we'll get that answered at the end of the show. Let's talk about the law then, because we have laws that protect us from that allow us to breastfeed wherever we are welcome, right? So are there any laws to enforce that law? Because it seems like people can just go ahead and ask us anyway, and then nothing happens to them. There's no consequence for doing that. So what's going on with that, Krisdee?
Well, in Texas, you're right. We have a law that says we can nurse in public, but it doesn't say that we're protected because there's no enforcement provision here. In Beverly Hills, in California, where this happened, there is an enforcement of sorts, because a mom can report, I don't know exactly how it works, but a mom can report an incident and the company can be fined. It's not exactly an enforcement law. Do you understand it, Michelle, how it's different from what we're working on? I think it's because it's part of the civil rights protections there, that it's gender discrimination.
In California?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. In the state of California where this happened, California actually recently ruled that breastfeeding discrimination is classified as sexual discrimination in California, which is a really great ruling, because now women in California can go online and they can look under the sexual discrimination, and they'll find something called UNRUH, UNRUH, and under the UNRUH, they can actually go in and file a formal complaint or incident report, or whatever you would call it, for the enforcing body to come in and do whatever type of investigation that they do, and then potentially issue a fine to Anthropology or whoever it is in the state of California. In Texas, all of us on the show tonight are all Texas moms. You know, we don't have enforcement, and that's why Krisdee and I were working on the legislation, trying to get an enforcement provision, because actually a law, by definition, is a body of rules and principles that govern the affairs of a community and are enforced by either a political authority or a legal system. So, by definition, a law is something that's enforceable. So without an enforcement provision, you could actually argue that the Texas law that they're calling a law that says women have the right to nurse in public really isn't a law without enforcement.
It's just kind of like an empty...
It's kind of like a public service statement saying, we pretty please want you to do this because it's a good thing.
Well, yeah, and even in the law, I'm sorry, even in the law it says that, you know, it states why it's good for the mother and the baby to breastfeed. So it is kind of like a public service announcement and not necessarily more like a law.
Right. So we're working to amend the law so that businesses will be informed that it exists. It will be illegal to interfere with or restrict breastfeeding, and there will be an enforcement provision. What we worked on last session was that the mother would be able to sue for up to $500, and it was capped there, so people who were worried that there would be a lot of lawsuits as a result, that's just kind of a silly worry, because what mother has time or money to hire a lawyer as it is, and then to sue for $500? I mean, as it is now, Victoria's Secret made a donation to our local breastfeeding coalition after what happened here in Austin for $5,000. And Barnes & Noble's donation was $10,000. So a business stands to lose a lot more money over discrimination than they do over a $500 lawsuit. So that's what we'll be working on in the coming session.
That was the thing that came up too about anthropology. I read through that whole thread. It took forever. And some of the things I was hearing was like, you know, what are you guys trying to do? It's not going to work. A company isn't going to pay attention to you or change their policies just because a couple of moms are upset. You know, that could be really deflating for somebody who just started out as an activist to hear that for them to think, wow, you know, maybe they're right. Maybe, you know, what can a few moms do in the face of a company? What can moms do in order to kind of get the word out? Because one of the arguments was like, people aren't going to stop shopping Anthropology over this. So what would be the response to that? As I nurse my baby.
There's a quote. I'm trying to find it because I want to say it right.
Is it Margaret Mead?
That a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has.
Yeah, I love that Margaret Mead quote. I think it needs to be shared. But let me back up. Let's say I am starting out as a brand new breastfeeding activist, or, you know, and I say activist, I think that makes people think that they have a lot that they have to do in order to be an activist. What can moms do to support people like you who are trying to make a difference, who are trying to change legislation, trying to change the law? How can other women help you?
The most important thing that a mom can do is to contact her legislator, because they only care about their own constituents. So if they're not hearing about it from people who will or will not vote for them, then it's just not on their radar.
Okay, so is there, here I am, I've got 3 other kids, I'm nursing one, doing the program, I'm the poster child for a busy mom. Other busy moms out there who maybe don't have the time or the wherewithal to format a letter to their representative, does Best for Babes have something like already kind of an outline that they could use?
You know what? We don't have an outline up right now, but we have some from last session that we need to edit and put up. on txbfleg.com. That'll take people to the legislative page of the Texas Breastfeeding Coalition's website. And there are some guidelines there, some suggestions of ways of being involved. But I do need to put up some sample letters.
Okay,
And they need, though, to be different. If legislators are just getting the same
form letter,
a 4-letter, then they won't pay as much attention as if there's an intro that says, here I am, a mother of 4 kids. I'm nursing one as I write this. I'm the picture of a busy mom. I care about breastfeeding for these reasons. And then launch into the please support this bill, etc.
Okay, and that bill, that's something maybe we can link to in a, like, say, an email to our congressman?
It hasn't been filed yet because the session hasn't started yet, but you can say that that bill will be put up by Jessica Farrar. And it'll come up. They'll know it. They'll call them the breastfeeding bills, and they'll know what we're talking about.
And what about moms like who don't live in Texas? What about moms who are watching this in other states? What can they do to help make a change? Because what I've been getting are messages of like helplessness from women saying, you know, I don't see how we can make a difference when there's, like I said, so many people out there who are against women nursing in public. What can we say to these women?
I think there are a lot of states that still need enforcement provisions, so they can go to breastfeedinglaw.com and see what their laws are, and they can contact their legislators. They can help us spread the word in the states where we are working on legislation. Is it Idaho, Michelle, that still lacks any law at all?
Yes.
There's a petition right now that legislators aren't going to necessarily pay attention to a petition all that much, but it's awareness raising, and I think that's a big part of what moms can do is just raise awareness. You know, share messages. If they know somebody who lives in Texas, then they can be sharing, even if they don't live in Texas, that they can join on Facebook. We support breastfeeding laws with enforcement. Texas breastfeeding laws with enforcement, and we'll be putting out calls for action in that Facebook group. They can share memes as we get into the session, just so that people know what's going on and that they can support, that they can contact their legislators.
Okay. So I have a bunch of questions. There's so many things I wanted to talk about here. As far as like the anthropology one went, somebody was saying, you know, if you have a nursing baby, like, why don't you just stay home? And I talked about this the other night with Joe and Andrea, and I got really emotional about it because I think brand new moms feel isolated enough as it is. We don't really get out all the time anymore. Our whole lives have changed, and we're in the house a lot, and it's so mentally important for us to get the heck out of our houses. And the very idea of somebody saying, you know, you should just stay home since you have a baby to feed is hurtful. It hurts to hear, you know, you need to just stay at home until your kids are done nursing. If my kids nurse until they're 2 years old, you know, you want me to be a shut-in for 2 years? That doesn't make any sense. I think a lot of the things that are said to nursing moms, the comments that I saw online, especially on the anthropology thread, were not based in any kind of knowledge about what it's like to breastfeed, especially past a year. A lot of the things that were said, like, why don't you pump? Why don't you go to your car? A lot of things that I think a mom who's actually nursed, who hasn't nursed, might not understand. Can we address some of those things very quickly about, like, why wouldn't I want to pump and bring a bottle with me? Like, what would be the argument against that? Or not the argument, the facts behind that. I don't want this to be an argument. I want to represent some facts here.
I think, you know, as a mom, finding time to pump and put breast milk in a bottle and then turn around and make the bottle and give it to the baby takes 3 times as long than it does to just take your baby and I'm trying to multitask as much as I can. I have 4 children. So take the baby, put them in a baby carrier, and let them nurse while I'm cooking dinner, or whatever I have to do. So, it's just not feasible. If somebody would like to come watch my children, every single time that the baby needs to be fed every 2 hours, and watch everything and do all of the chores that need to be done during that 20 minutes or whatever for me to pump and make the bottle and give it to the baby, oh, that would be amazing. I'd have a live-in maid. It's just not realistic in life for some moms, especially busy moms who have more than 1 child.
Yeah, the other thing that was brought up was like, why don't you go out to your car? Now, I would like to, I know Anthropology hasn't apologized, but I would like to issue a public apology to the 2 moms that I totally went like crazy town on. I was nursing, and he was crying, and I was so frustrated, and I'm on Facebook trying to answer this stuff. Someone had said, why don't you sit in your car? Well, Krisdee, I think like when I moved here to Austin 4 years ago, I didn't have a car. We didn't have a car, and I got around everywhere on a bus. And to assume that everyone has a car with air conditioning, no less, that's quite a big assumption. Not everybody owns a car. Not everybody has the luxury to go out to an air-conditioned car and mess with the environment for 25 minutes while I nurse a baby. That was another one. I think a lot of the things that women are up against is essentially just ignorance about breastfeeding. And I think people get upset about the word ignorance. It just means uninformed. And a lot of people have no idea about what it is, what it means for the baby, what it means for the mother's health. And I'm hoping that we can start having more conversations. That was a crap apology. I apologize for being rude. I apologize for flying off the handle and saying things. I actually called one of the women a name. I called her 2 names. I called her a classist elitist, and I'm very not proud of that moment. I'm very ashamed, and because I'm really, really trying hard to be a better person and try to understand that these people who don't agree with me or don't agree with my choice to breastfeed don't have anything personal against me. I think that same woman that went off and said, why can't you be more discreet, or why can't you, you don't have any shame. I bet if I fell down in front of her and she didn't know I was a breastfeeding mom, she would help pick me up and be nice to me. Do you know what I mean? I think that we find too many ways on Facebook to become divisive and mean to one another, when in real life, if we weren't behind a screen typing anonymously, we would be so much nicer to each other. So I personally want to try to be a better person and not be so angry when I talk about these topics that I'm passionate about, and try to come at it from a more from a place where we can find common ground. Because there was a study out that showed that no matter how many facts you throw in front of people, they're not going to change their mind, because their decision making comes from their beliefs. And if they already believe that it's not a good thing, then you're not going to get really far throwing information in front of them. And the idea is that we have to find common ground with these folks. And so hopefully what we can find is figure out is what is this common ground, so that we can start a different conversation. I'd love to hear your thoughts about that little rant right there. Sorry. What are you doing?
I think the common ground is, and can you hear me? I unplugged my mic for a second.
I can hear you.
Myself. Okay, good, because before I was hearing my voice twice, and now it's only once. The common ground is that we all care about the health of mothers and babies. I think that formula use has been so prevalent that it's a really hard pill to swallow, that it's not really about the benefits of breastfeeding, it's about the risks of formula use. That's a hard way to talk about it, but it's accurate. That it's not just that my kids will have less of a chance of getting asthma because they're breastfed. It's that if they weren't breastfed, they would have a greater risk of getting asthma. And as people realize that it's more than just breast is best. It's more than just a platitude and a cute little rhyme. That there's science behind it. That formula is great. Thank goodness we have it. It's not as good. It's not a living organism. The more that we educate and the more that we do make a point of doing it in a diplomatic way, then people will start to accept it. It'll just become ingrained. We'll all know it. The way that we all know breast is best, we'll also know that breastfeeding prevents breast cancer, that breastfeeding prevents obesity and diabetes, the specifics of it, the meat of it. And I have to believe that as people realize how significant it is, that it could save $13 billion and over 900 babies a year, that they will be more inclined to be supportive of it. And I also think it's important to realize that we can get rude when there's the anonymity of talking online. And there are trolls out there who aren't going to be receptive to anything ever, maybe. But they are not the majority. They're really not. Not going to be able to remember any numbers right now. But it's something like 14% study who said that they would be uncomfortable to sit next to a nursing mom. Only 14%. That's not what it looks like when you're reading nasty comments, on a HuffPo article, but that's not a lot of people. The vast majority of people, I think, are supportive.
That's so nice to know. It really is. I was at a restaurant here in town. I was at Elizabeth yesterday on First Street having lunch with a girlfriend of mine, and the baby needed to nurse, and I kind of turned to the side. Here's like the most people in town and are in the restaurant, and I pulled my shirt down, and there's a lady right next to me, and I said out loud, I was like, well, I'm just going to turn this way for a little privacy, and there's a lady right here, so I'm okay. And she was really sweet. She was really nice about it. She just kind of gave me a smile and flirted with the baby for a little bit, and that was it. I hope that more women, or not I hope, here's a question for you, Michelle. How can we encourage women who might be hesitant to breastfeed in public? What can we give her in the way of help her to find her confidence, to find her comfort level with breastfeeding in public? What advice would you give to, like, say, a first-time mom heading out for the first time out of her house, thank goodness, and to go do something, to grocery store or run an errand or whatever? What would you say to her?
Well, one of the things is, I actually had a hotline caller call one time with the issue she was having, and she had a big struggle with wanting to nurse in public, and she said that for the longest time I would be in the line at the grocery store with a cart full of groceries, and you can never predict when a baby is going to get hungry. And I think that's a lot of the, why don't you just go feed your baby in the car, or why don't you feed them before you go in the store so they're not going to get hungry while you're there. There's growth spurts sometimes where your baby wants to eat every 20 minutes, it seems like sometimes, and that's okay and that's normal. So it's impossible to predict when a baby's going to get hungry. And so if you're in a line of grocery store, and you have your basket full of groceries, and all of a sudden your baby starts getting really hungry, is it easier to just feed your baby right there if you're able to with a carrier and you're, and do what you need to do? Or is it going to be easier to leave your groceries behind, go to your car like some would suggest, and then come back in to find your groceries are gone and have to shop all over again? So it's kind of ridiculous that people would, assume that moms should just always go find a bathroom or go feed it, because it's not always feasible for them to do so. And so I think, for moms just to know, first of all, the law is the law, and most states in our country say that a mom has a right to nurse in public, and they have that statement very clear. So it doesn't really matter what other people's opinion of nursing in public may be, because the law is the law, and the law does trump that opinion. So I think that gives moms a little bit of courage to know that the law is on their side. Having the law handy is always a good thing for moms. But a lot of moms too have this whole issue of cover or uncover. You know, you nurse your baby in whatever way, form, or fashion that is comfortable for you and your baby. If that means with a cover, without a cover, you do what you need to do to take care of your baby and to feed your baby, because, you know, you have to prioritize things. Are you going to put other people's feelings and opinions in front of your need of a baby? No, it's not realistic, and it's not realistic that other people would happen to suggest otherwise. You know, so I think, you know, moms finding a good support group in their community of other nursing moms really is a major thing to help them. You know, with that, you know, that's how I found my confidence to breastfeed to begin with, because I came from a family of all formula feeders, and I never even witnessed breastfeeding, and I got pregnant for the first time, and I, like most newly pregnant moms, read every pregnancy book there was, and I found a book on breastfeeding, and I went, wow, I want to do this. But I'd never seen breastfeeding, so I went to a La Leche League meeting, and because of the society and the thoughts in my head, I thought I was going to be thrown out of there when I was about to raise my hand very bravely and courageously, asking somebody, because I couldn't quite see when they were nursing their babies, and I wanted to see what a proper latch looked like. And so I raised my hand, thinking to myself in my head, okay, the worst thing they can do is think that I'm some type of a pervert and throw me out of here, and I'll never see them again, but that's okay. But I'm going to ask, because I really feel if I see it, I can do it, and that's the last piece that I need. So I raised my hand, and I said, hey, can somebody please show me? And of course they all were like, yes, come, and I could pick and choose from all the moms. You know, and having that mom support at that moment was the one thing. And then they all left me their phone numbers. Once you start doing this, if you have any problems or you need help, just call us and we'll come to your house, we'll help you. You know, so I think support, mom-to-mom support, for me is one of the biggest things.
Awesome. No, that's what I wanted to hear. Krisdee, so in closing up, wait, one more question. I had another question, because we were talking about formula, and I think a lot of moms can get turned off when we say, you know, about the risks of formula, because there is a tiny percentage of moms who can't nurse it. And actually, Michelle,
I'm one.
Yeah, Michelle is one of them. And actually, can you share? I'm going to go back. I'll come back to you, Krisdee. Michelle, can you just share that really quickly?
There is a very, very small percentage of babies that cannot have breast milk. It's not like lactose intolerance, where their body just doesn't like it. Breast milk is actually deadly and will kill a baby who has classic galactosemia. It's a really long word, but my daughter Natalie was actually born with galactosemia. So yes, here I am, a breastfeeding advocate who was also a formula feeder, because it's not like I'm going to breastfeed my baby and make her die by giving her my breast milk. She was required to have soy-based formula in order to survive. So of course I'm going to do what it takes for my baby to thrive and survive. So that's the small percentage out there where babies with galactosemia cannot have formula. So yes, formula does have its place, and it's a great thing. And gosh, what would I do without formula? I wouldn't have my baby Natalie with me, you know. So formula is a good thing. For some people, you know, it works, and for other people it doesn't. And it's about doing what works for you and your baby.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Michelle. I want to make sure that I don't want the program ever to be about, like, saying that people are wrong for their decisions, or that there's only one right way to do something. I mean, this particular baby, this particular nursing experience has been hellish for me, for lack of any other better word. This has been really hard. I don't know if you could see him, like, clawing and scratching and tugging and pulling at me. We're still having a really, really hard time. I'm stoked that I made it to 4 months, and here I am, a mom that usually nurses over 2 years. Just getting to month 4 has been really hard. So I don't want moms to feel like, you know, if you can't do it, then somehow you're a failure. I think what the message that needs to come across is that we want to encourage women to start breastfeeding. to at least start and attempt to, and then encourage them onwards through their journey. I think if we worded it differently, it would be received differently. I think a lot of times women look at this like it's one or the other, and that if I'm the other, then you look at me like I failed, and then I feel that way myself. And I know that that's not where you ladies are coming from. Your thoughts or feelings on that, Krisdee?
I think I totally agree, and I didn't know that about you, Michelle. I don't know how I haven't known that about you. I did know that you've had so much trouble, Gina, and I'm sorry for that, and congratulations on making it so far. I think that it came up in the Surgeon General's call to action. I think I just read that recently to address it as risks of formula. And I see the danger in that. And I see that it could, and I actually don't think I've ever talked about it that way in social media before, because it's risky, because you don't want to alienate anyone, because so many people have to make that choice. People close to me have had to make that choice, family members, for medical reasons. And I get that, and I think that there's another side too, where people, I don't know, I'm sort of getting flustered and probably not expressing myself well, that if we only think of breastfeeding as just having benefits and not being the norm, then there's a danger there too, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. That was well said, for sure. All right, ladies, so we're going to wrap up. So I want to, since we started talking about anthropology, and I'm hoping that somebody from Anthropology is watching, what would we like to, what's the message that you'd like to get across? What would you like to say to them and to other stores? And bearing in mind, and I will say this will be my part, that women drive sales in the United States more than anything else. We make all the decisions as far as buying cars and houses. Our opinion goes a lot farther than any other opinion. So we drive the economy. And if women did indeed, if new moms who started out breastfeeding, which is 70% of women do start out attempting to in the United States, or 67%. So if 67% of moms with income stayed at home for 2 years, what would happen to businesses? We don't want that to happen. So I'm just going to throw that out there and then let you guys finish up. I'll start with you, Michelle.
You know, I don't think realistically that, well, with the amount of businesses that are continually being reported to have nursing and public-related incidents, I think we would run out of places to shop if we all boycotted all of the places that have ever had any. So, you know, I don't think that that's an answer, because, and I don't think it would be really confusing to a brand new mom to try and figure out where to shop, what to do, you know, and it's not always convenient for some when there's one store in a very small town and that's the store they shop at, you know, but I think that, you know, stores need to recognize, you know, especially as the laws are starting to evolve, there's very, you know, gosh, there's a handful of states now that are all seeking enforcement provisions, and you know, there's a few states that just recently had rulings in Michigan as well as in California, you know, beefing up breastfeeding laws. So as the laws continue to be beefed up, there's going to start to be more and more consequences for not having proper training for employees. So I think it's going to become kind of a mandatory thing that businesses are going to have to pay more attention to it, because it's going to start to hit their pocketbooks, and they're not going to like that in the form of maybe not boycotting, but in the forms of fines and fees that are going to be assessed to them. And I think, you know, not only is it a legal issue, but it's a health issue, and I think pretty much anybody can get around, you know, supporting the health of moms and babies, and I think that's something that we all have in common, just as a human being and human race, and so I think, you know, it's good for business. I think the problem is they just don't quite understand how to handle a situation. One of the things that I, as a business owner, like to look at is, you know, you have a mom and pop business and you have Joe who doesn't want Mary nursing in the business, and the business owner has Joe and Mary. They're both really great customers. They can't afford to lose either one. Joe expects me to say something to Mary. Mary doesn't want me to approach her while she's nursing. So what do I do as a business owner if I don't even know much about breastfeeding laws and what to do? Well, I think education, as it comes forth, to know, you simply say, Joe, I know that you really want me to approach Mary, but you know what, this is the law, and the law says that I can't approach her, and with an enforcement provision I can be fined, so I'm going to choose not to. Not that I don't agree or disagree with you, that's irrelevant, but the law is the law, and that's irrespective, it doesn't matter what your opinion is. So I think, just getting to the point where businesses can actually be taught how to handle those situations can really be helpful as far as, resolving some of this.
Right, and this isn't about us wanting them to build a lounge or anything. This is just about allowing us to breastfeed in public.
Yes.
Krisdee, I'm going to let you say yours, and then we're going to say goodbye.
I am not sure I have anything to add to what Michelle said. I think that businesses have, they're a part of our culture and our society, and they have a responsibility. They're made up of people. They're run by people who have a moral responsibility to the public health, I think. And if that is unmotivating, then they should cover their butts.
You know what? I want to end there. I think that was great. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining me. Thank you, everybody else, for joining us here at the Progressive Parenting Network. Be sure to visit us at www.progressiveparentingnetwork.com. And many thanks to our sponsor, Beautiful. You can visit them at www.beeyoutitiful.com. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll talk to you soon. And until next time, take care of yourselves and take care of each other.